We went out for dinner last night on Mother's Day to a Peruvian restaurant in Tigard, and it was packed and noisy. We ended up sitting next to a small family of husband and wife and two children. Uh, the older of the two children was probably 5 or 6, a boy, and the younger was maybe 3, and she was just uh, being a big distraction and fussing. And the mother told us eventually that she hadn't had a nap. But she was a delightful little girl in spite of the noise she was making and so on. But anyway, uh, I don't know what brought it up, but the mother announced that she was a naturopathic physician practicing medicine. And I thought, well, let's make some conversation here. So I said, well, in today's paper, it's talking about people being upset with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for saying he wants a national registry of children with autism. And she said, yeah, that's terrible. And we didn't go into much beyond that. But then I said, well, he thinks autism is caused by vaccines. Uh, I think, since we've got people without a medical education having opinions on this subject, uh, here's mine. I think autism, in some cases at least, is caused by a failure of having close face interaction with a baby, with a tremendous distraction we have. I see people coming by our house all the time with a baby in a stroller, and they're walking along looking at their iPhone and talking to somebody, and sometimes they're somehow doing everything at once. They're texting, and the child is riding along there disconnected from the parent. And I'm just profoundly impressed by the distraction and the disconnection. And I think that's where autism comes from, a lot of it. Heavily influenced by my graduate education, where I was told that mothers who were having a active mental illness during the first 6 months of their baby's life, there's like a 90% chance that when that baby gets older, they will have a major mental illness. It may not be the same one as the mother, but some major mental illness. So she said, the mother there said, well, that doesn't comport with what I've observed, and gave some examples of people in her family that have autism that she doesn't think had anything to do with not being interacted with. But meantime, I wasn't paying too much attention, but I began to notice that their 6-year-old or so son was over there with a little iPad with it over by his side, playing a game with it, whereas his parents and his sister were over to the right, and this intense interaction between the two parents and the younger of the two children, and the older one totally disconnected. So that, I didn't say anything, and I was tempted to say something to her about, well, what do you think's going on right now with your son? But I didn't. I'm glad I didn't. But this is Jan Wyers on autism. When I worked in the mental hospital, I read a lot of files. This was back in 1962, when I was there as a student intern. And there were these, I was on the combative female ward, and there were maybe 30 women there on the ward, and I spent a lot of time, most of my time interacting with them, but I spent some time reading their old files, which tended to be about that thick. Some of them had been in the mental hospital for 5 to 20 years. And if you go in when you're 20 and you stay there until you're 40, that's 20 years. And there were a bunch of women there that were in their late 40s. But there were 2 or 3 that in their file it evolves that their mother has died or for some reason not been available to parent and their father, and they go live with their grandmother. The grandmother is aging and tired, and she has the little girl sleep up in the attic. Iletta Morningstar would tell people, my name is Iletta Morningstar. I'm 14 years old. I'm a little girl sleeping on the blue mattress in the attic. And so here she was in her mid-40s and still schizophrenic, but there it was, isolation leads to fantasies, which can eventually lead to hallucinations. That's different than autism, but there's a similar basis for it, which is being disconnected. Disconnected. That's what's going on in our culture in an epidemic way. All the overstimulation and all the speed and demands and requirements, and parents who are having to work 3 jobs in order to, low-paid jobs in order to pay their rent. How is the child going to get the attention they need? The emotional attention, the psychological attention. It ain't there, and it's causing disaster after disaster. So that's Jan Wyers, who has opinions maybe without enough scientific basis, but where's mental illness coming from?